PR Connections Radio presents
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, where we break down everything involving your Vegas Golden Knights, we're going to be talking about the most recent matchup between the Chicago Blackhawks and your Vegas Golden Knights. And on surface and on paper, there wasn't a lot to talk about. However, there is a lot of stuff in the surface level that we are going to be discussing here on Vegas Hockey Hub. We have pregame notes. We have the game itself. We have the playoff situations. There's going to be so much that we are going to be talking about on this episode. It's going to be amazing to go over. Now, I do want to mention that we were at T-Mobile Arena. If you saw some weird guy wearing a Chicago Cubs, blue shirt, and just so happened to see that was me, indeed that was. So, when it comes to Vegas Hockey Hub, T-Mobile Arena, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Vegas Golden Knights, and that was a really fun game to go to, and getting to see a generational talent in Connor Bedard was the main selling point, and honestly, getting to see him live in person, he is worth the price of admission. Connor Bedard is going to be a face of the NHL. What an insane amount of talent in one individual. But you know what? Before we get into all of that, I want to very quickly remind you, go to www.prconnectionsradio.com. Check out all the amazing content we have on there. We have about a dozen shows on the platform, including Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to our website and watch all the network. If you also want to follow us on social media, we have all our major platforms at Vegas Hockey Hub. And when it comes to our social medias, I am also on all platforms as well at IANJRACHIELE if you want to follow your host. And I'm going to be pointing this out next week because of what happens next, regardless if it's Dallas, if it's Edmonton, regardless of who the team is. Vegas Hockey Hub is committed to giving you every single game. We're going to have Vegas Hockey Hub for all the action starting next week. Now, a main storyline heading into the matchup between Chicago is actually something that doesn't even involve the Blackhawks, but definitely involves your Vegas Golden Knights, and that is the seeding aspect of it. Are you going to be the third spot in the Pacific or the second wildcard spot? Now, let's break this down from a certain perspective. Do you want to face Dallas or do you want to face Edmonton? And I understand both arguments, and you are going to understand both perspectives. However, let's break it down here on Vegas Hockey Hub. How we see it. If you take on Dallas, you're going to have a much tougher road come playoff time. Not only are you going to have to take on Dallas, which is a very tough opponent, but you're also going to have to take on the winner of Colorado versus Winnipeg, which means that you're going to have to take on a core group of McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, and then on top of that, Alexander Georgiev, who did very well against Vegas earlier in the year. So it's a way tougher battle, and you're going to have to climb a much steeper mountain to get back and win a Stanley Cup championship if you are the second wild card. Whereas if you pivot, the third and final spot in the Pacific means that you would take on Edmonton, and then you would take on the winner of Vancouver versus Nashville. What we're going to break down here is what road do you want to go down? Do you want to go down a road with a bunch of curves and a bunch of all that stuff in interweaving and going in between? Or would you like to go on a road that is a bit bumpy, But for the most part, it could be a straight line to the Western Conference Finals because the Edmonton Oilers, you beat them last year. A Edmonton Oilers team, yeah, you have Connor McDavid, you got Leon Draisaitl, but you've beaten them before. The Vancouver Canucks, the goaltending situation and the injuries that have popped up in terms of Thatcher Demko opens up a door for your Vegas Golden Knights to beat Vancouver. So, as a Vegas Golden Knights fan and as someone who has been watching the Vegas Golden Knights for the last 7 years, when we compare Dallas and Edmonton, you should prefer the third spot in the Pacific, where your money and where your odds should be on is taking on Edmonton rather than facing up against Dallas. I don't see Dallas or Edmonton. I see Edmonton as a better opportunity, and we'll see what happens over the last couple of days. However, my pick would be Vegas over Vegas and Edmonton over Vegas and Dallas. But look, who do you want? All right, I'm going to pass it over to the audience, the people are watching all around the world. Who do you want the Vegas Golden Knights to face off in the first round? Because if you have a team like Dallas or a team like Edmonton, why is it that you need to go up against Dallas rather than Edmonton? Or vice versa, let's flip it. Why would you want to face Edmonton rather than going up against Dallas? There's plenty of reasons why. There's plenty of reasons why you should. But I want to know from you, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights going up in the next week, who do you want to face in the first round? That's this matchup we really need to be talking about when it comes between. Now, moving over to the roster moves and the pregame situation for your Vegas Golden Knights. And there was a lot of action heading into the Chicago game, as it was announced in the morning that Jonas Roundbeer would be recalled from the AHL. So kind of on the conveyor belt of being brought up and brought down, kind of been his situation the last couple of seasons, and more importantly this season. Jonas Roundbeer going to be in the starting lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights in this matchup against Chicago. And for Jonas Roundbeer, this is going to be a situation where you see a guy who is on the cusp of being a NHL everyday guy, but he still has to be in the AHL at times. He's been a healthy scratch at certain points throughout the year, but good news for him that he will be in the starting lineup for Vegas, being recalled from the AHL. Now, Anthony Mantha being absent from practice, being acquired from the trade deadline. He's been a middle six forward for majority of the time since he got acquired. He has been on that same line with William Karlsson. He's been with Pavel Dorofeyev. They've even put him with like Brett Howden and Paul Cotter at certain times. But Anthony Mantha being absent from practice, it is unknown if it's going to be a situation where he'll be out for a while, or maybe this is going to be a day-to-day kind of situation. We're not going to speculate. But Anthony Mantha was not there for the morning skate earlier this morning before this game kicked off. And in replace of Anthony Mantha in the starting lineup, welcome back Michael Amadio. So Michael Amadio, who has kind of been out of the starting lineup for the last couple of games, he is going to be back. He will be on that third line, and we'll talk about the starting lineup in a little bit. But Anthony Mantha absent from practice, and alongside him, Chandler Stevenson. Now, we know that he missed a game or two recently because his family had a baby. Now, he came back, he scored a goal, it was actually player of the game, and had a 4-point night just a while back. However, he was absent from practice as well, which does lead us to believe that he maybe suffered an injury during the most recent game against Colorado. And with Chandler Stevenson being absent from practice, they essentially have Jonas Roundbeer put in the starting lineup, and then they have promoted Paul Cotter and Brett Howden. They've moved them up one line. And like we mentioned, we're going to talk about that starting lineup in about a few minutes. But for Chandler Stevenson being absent from practice, from Anthony Mantha being absent from practice, those are two guys that are kind of a big deal for the middle six. You know, this is a Vegas Golden Knights team that needs depth. And right now, having those guys out, that would be kind of a big blow come playoff time. And then finally, Alex Pietrangelo still out for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, we do think that there is an injury or something that's going on with him. However, no speculation. We do not have any confirmed reports. All we know is that Alex Pietrangelo is still out. It feels like this has been the 7th or 8th game in a row that Alex Pietrangelo is out for your Vegas Golden Knights. Hopefully, it is nothing serious. He can come back in sometime soon. But for Alex Pietrangelo being gone, it means that Zach Whitecloud still in the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. And there is a lineup change on defense, and we'll break down that in the starting lineup in about a few minutes. However, when it comes to Alex Pietrangelo, him not being in the starting lineup means that Zach Whitecloud is still going to be active, and he will still be in the organization and kind of in that starting lineup as a pairing on defense. And William Carrier out once again. I mean, ever since the Nashville game in the end of March, William Carrier has just not been active. He hasn't been skating around the team. And I really sit here and look at what William Carrier has done this year. And he's kind of been an injury-prone type of guy. He's missed a certain amount of games in this season. He did even the year before. He did miss time with injuries. So with William Carrier being an original misfit, a lot of people love to see him on the ice. I get it. But if you're from a managerial perspective, if you're someone who's watching him very closely, I can't sit here and just kind of look at and go, what's the future like for William Carrier? Considering what the bottom six has, all the young guys the Vegas Golden Knights have in the wings and the AHL. But yeah, William Carrier out of the starting lineup once again for your Vegas Golden Knights organization. And then lastly, in net for the Vegas Golden Knights would be Logan Thompson. So Logan Thompson, LT, they had Aiden Hill in net against Colorado. And it seems like they're doing a rotation type of situation for the Vegas Golden Knights, where Aiden Hill will start one game, and then Logan Thompson will start a second game. And we do not know come playoff time who's going to start, who's going to be the main starter. Is it going to be a 1A, 1B situation? Is there going to be a goaltender they trust to start every single game? However, I will not be surprised if it ends up being like this with Bruce Cassidy. Logan Thompson starts game 1, Aiden Hill starts game 2, and then they rotate for the remainder of that series. So it would be Thompson game 3, Hill game 4, and then depending on if game 5, game 6, game 7, that'd be kind of a rotation there. So getting into the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights between the Golden Knights and the Chicago Blackhawks, Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, and Jonathan Marchessault. That is your first forward line. Kind of been your status quo for the entire year. On forward line 2, Paul Cotter is being elevated to that second line, and he will be with Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev. And then on the third line, Brett Howden, who is once again being elevated from the fourth line where he's been over the last couple of games to the third line, and he will be with William Karlsson and the returning Michael Amadio to the starting lineup. And then on the fourth line, Giannis Roundbeer, Nick Waugh, and Keegan Kolazar will be on that fourth line for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, in terms of defensive pairings for the Vegas Golden Knights, Nick Hague, Noah Hanifin has been your top defensive pairing for the past month and a half now. And then your second defensive pairing, the constant, the steady rock of the defense, Braden McNabb and Shea Theodore. And then the lineup change that I alluded to earlier, you have Zach Whitecloud and Alec Martinez. So Alec Martinez replacing Ben Hutton in the starting lineup. Ben Hutton has been in the alongside Whitecloud the past 3 games. Martinez back in the starting lineup. So Whitecloud and Martinez, Theodore and McNabb, Hanifin and Hague. And really interesting there. Then Logan Thompson in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. And, you know, just really studying and looking at the starting lineup, there's going to be some changes come playoff time. We know what Mark Stone coming back. That's going to be someone who's going to be taken off the lineup. Will not be surprised if it is a Paul Cotter or if it is a Brett Howden. But when it comes to your Vegas Golden Knights, I think defensively, you have 5 of your 6 defensemen already in the playoffs. Now, getting into the game itself at T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas, and the action was kind of slow to start out the game. There was some good passing. There was some stuff on the offensive zone, in the defensive zone. Of course, the face-off circle when it came to your Vegas Golden Knights, which they dominated in this game, by the way, a 70% face-off win percentage for your Vegas Golden Knights. The hits were kind of equal, good back and forth. But there was an interesting development in the first period of this game that some Golden Knights fans are kind of wondering, should that have counted or should that not have counted? As in the first period, halfway into it, there would be a no goal by Pavel Dorofeyev. And based off of the replay and everything that happened, I understand why Toronto made the call. However, when you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, you never want to see a goal be taken off the board. So I can completely understand why Vegas Golden Knights fans were a bit annoyed, especially at T-Mobile Arena, because they really thought this was going to be a goal by Pavel Dorofeyev, that he was going to score his 14th of the season. But unfortunately, that would not happen, and the Vegas Golden Knights just happened to not get that puck in the back of the net. So it would stay a 0-0 game in the first period. Now, there was some scoring opportunities that just did not connect in the first period for Vegas. One of the examples that I would mention is the Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel, he was on the left side, shot it in the slot, and it just went wide of Peter Mrazek. I mean, I guess Peter Mrazek just thought that he was going to be prime Patrick Waugh in this game, apparently. But this is a situation where Jack Eichel just did not connect there. And at the end of the first period, only thing that was on the score sheet was a Brayden McNabb penalty. So your Vegas Golden Knights would be on the penalty kill for the first time in the game. And your Golden Knights would successfully kill that off. So you would have a 1-for-1 on the penalty kill for your Vegas Golden Knights. And then you would actually start out the second period, and the Vegas Golden Knights would be immediately on the power play, as there would be a penalty on the Chicago Blackhawks, a cross-checking penalty against Ivan Barbashev. So your Golden Knights would be on the NV Energy power play. And there was an opportunity that did happen here, and I will want to mention it. Giannis Roundbeer actually had a chance to score in the middle of the second period, and it just went way over the net. I felt like he just had too much air under it, and it just went well past Peter Mrazek. So, yeah, that could have been a goal by Giannis Roundbeer in his first game since being called up from the AHL in a while. But it did not happen, and it remained a 0-0 game for the Vegas Golden Knights and the Chicago Blackhawks until about 4 minutes left in the second period, as Brayden McNabb would get his fourth goal of the season, assisted by Pavel Dorofeyev. He gets an assist on this one, despite missing that no goal in the first period, and Tomas Hertl with the assist as well. And that would open up the game and put your Vegas Golden Knights on the board and make it a 1-0 game for your Vegas Golden Knights. And what I can appreciate about this Brayden McNabb goal was how it was set up, is how Dorofeyev and Hertl were kind of taking, attention onto themselves, and the way they were shooting the puck, the way, it was catch and shoot, and Brayden McNabb executed it very well and got the puck in the back of the net. Very solid job by him. So at the end of the second period at T-Mobile Arena, being a 1-0 game for your Vegas Golden Knights, and you could tell that the energy, it was solid, at T-Mobile Arena, being there, getting to talk to fans and talking to people that I was around. There was a lot of Chicago fans. And I'm not just speaking on this because I was wearing a Chicago Cubs shirt to a Vegas Golden Knights game, but as someone who is a Vegas Golden Knights person who's watching them, who's been analyzing them, talking about them, create show about this team, the amount of Chicagoans and people from Chicago who either live in Vegas or travel to Vegas to watch this Blackhawks game, majority of the time, it was a good, 75-25, 80-20 split between Vegas and the opposing team. But I can say confidently that it was like a good 60-40 or 65-35. There was a lot of Chicago Blackhawks fans in attendance at T-Mobile Arena. Really kind of tells you the manpower and the traveling aspect of how people from Chicago support their sports teams, regardless if it's the Cubs, the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks, you name it. The city of Chicago and the people who love the city of Chicago, they represent their teams proudly. So getting into the third period, and there would be no penalties in the third period at all, just straight up offense. As about 7 minutes into the third period, Michael Amadio, welcome back to the starting lineup, your 14th goal of the season, and it would be a 2-0 game for the Vegas Golden Knights. And for them to capitalize on this and to really take advantage of this situation, Michael Amadio, good middle six forward. He has, kind of a complete player. And I've noticed this about the Vegas Golden Knights. And when it comes to George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, they like players who are just as good offensively as they are defensively. Now, you can call them two-way players. You can call them, 200-foot players. But what we're going to call them are Vegas Golden Knights type of players, because this is really what a lot of their roster is. And Michael Amadio is that type of guy. You see him play on offensively and then get back on the defense and do well defensively as well. So Vegas Golden Knights are up 2-0 with about 4 minutes left in the game. And then Connor Bedard would be skating. He'd have the puck on his stick, and then he would shoot it over to Jason Dickinson for his 22nd goal of the season. And about 4 minutes left, Chicago narrows the deficit down to 1. A really amazing play by Connor Bedard. And then you got Khrushchev, who also was with the assist as well. But all the attention was on Connor Bedard. And as a hockey fan and someone who's been watching hockey for a good amount of time now, Connor Bedard is special. And when you're watching him play, you're just in awe at some of the plays that he does. And the stat sheet for Connor Bedard in this game, really interesting watching what Connor Bedard does. 1 assist on 1 shot, and he had 2 takeaways in this game, but not bad for 19 minutes of ice time for Connor Bedard. And heading into the final 2 minutes of the third period, the Vegas Golden Knights would have an empty net situation. Chicago would pull Peter Mrazek. He would go to the bench. And on an empty net situation, Brett Howden to Jack Eichel, and then Jack Eichel to Nick Waugh for the empty netter. And it would be a 3-1 game. 13th goal of the season for Nick Waugh. And it would be a victory for your Vegas Golden Knights as they pick up the win against Chicago. And really overall, when you study and look back at this game in a little bit, what is going to be a big takeaway is the shots on goal. Now, the Chicago Blackhawks, they only had 20 shots on net. But your Chicago Blackhawks, who they were facing had 20 shots on net. The Vegas Golden Knights had 34. That is a big difference. A 14-shot differential between the home team in Vegas and the away team in Chicago. The amount of hits between the two, Chicago Blackhawks had 24 hits and the Vegas Golden Knights had 19. And they both had equal amount of penalty minutes with 1 penalty each for Chicago and Vegas. And really getting into the team stats here between Chicago and Vegas really tells you an interesting story. As not only did Vegas win 70% of their faceoffs, which they did, but the Chicago Blackhawks had 17 block shots as opposed to Vegas's with 11. And in the takeaway column, Vegas had 16 takeaways as compared to Chicago with 12. So on paper, it wasn't that big of a landslide. It wasn't that obvious of a mismatch between Chicago and Vegas. However, your player of the game, all right, we've been doing this for the entire season. We do a player of the game for any time they win or lose. And for tonight's matchup, we're going to go with someone who really deserved to be player of the game, and that is Braden McNabb. Braden McNabb, one goal, opened up this game with the first goal of it. And then more importantly, he had a +3. He was on the ice for every single point in this game. He had 3 shots on net. He had 2 blocked shots and 3 takeaways in this game. Braden McNabb was busy all night long, and he did really solid defensively, but he did good offensively as well. So, Braden McNabb, your player of the game for the Vegas Golden Knights against the Chicago Blackhawks. And then your win-loss record for Vegas, 45 wins, 28 losses, and 8 overtime losses. You're still battling with LA, trying to figure out the seeding aspect of it. But what we can appreciate here on Vegas Hockey Hub, you have Anaheim next. And I want to do a disclaimer because unfortunately we have something that's going to be the same event as Anaheim. So if we can try to record that show, we will. But we do not know if the schedule is going to overlap or not. So on Thursday, Vegas versus Anaheim, if we can do the recap show, we will try to put it out there. But if not, then we will schedule another recording behind the Anaheim Ducks game. So really just depends. We don't know what that situation is going to be like 2 days from now. But wanted to give you that disclaimer, the fact that we have an event we have to be at outside the Anaheim Ducks game. So we'll have to wait and see if we can actually be at the game or not, and if we can film and record and upload Vegas Hockey Hub for the final game of the regular season. And come playoff time, we're going to mention this. We are going to do a Vegas Hockey Hub recap show for every single game in the postseason. Game 1 to Game 2 to Game 3 to Game 4, and then if needed, Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7. We will do a preview show, and then we'll do a recap show for every single postseason game. We did this in 2023. Only makes sense that we do it in 2024. So that's going to be our schedule for the Vegas Golden Knights, and that is what we're going to do for Vegas Hockey Hub recap. And until next time, this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.